Hello, David. Hello, Leah. Hello, Matthew. Last year, you might remember that I did a video. I hope you saw it. If not, you should go back and see it. I did a video on the first Christmas. And in that video, I told you the story of the birth of Jesus. I'm now going to tell you the rest of the story after he was born. I know usually when you see a manger scene, you'll see a manger scene with the baby and Joseph and Mary and the shepherds and these three, what they call them, kings. That's not exactly what happened. The kings weren't kings, and they were magi, and they didn't come until later. So sometime after the time of Jesus' birth, or possibly a while before, there were some stargazers in the Bible, referred to as magi, which basically are men considered wise men you'd go to for answers to questions you may have. These wise men kept track of the movement of the stars and planets. In those days, they didn't really know what a planet was, only that it moved differently than the stars and didn't twinkle. So every light in the sky, other than the sun and moon, were basically called stars. As they continued watching the night sky, they discovered the star signaling the coming Messiah. I imagine the conversation of the Magi went something like this. I've chosen to use the traditional made-up names given them, which assumed there were three, but there was most likely more than that. So here's Caspar. Look, Belshazzar! Have you noticed that particular bright star that is in the Aries constellation, which has a distinct westerly movement? Belshazzar. Yes, I have. And I do believe it's a star signifying the birth of the Christ child, King of the Jews. Melchior. Just as our ancient writings have predicted, this is the right time for the king to be born. We must go west to Judah to find the child. Caspar. But first, we must gather gifts fitting for a king. Brothers, let us go to our storehouse and gather gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And so they traveled to the land of Judah, bearing their gifts and heading for its capital, Jerusalem. Meanwhile, when Jesus was 8 days old, Mary and Joseph took him to the temple in Jerusalem to do the things that the law of Moses required when having a baby boy. This demonstrated their dedication to God. While they were there, an old man named Simeon came up to them and said, "The Holy Spirit revealed to me that I would not see death until I'd seen the Christ." When he saw the baby Jesus, he took him in his arms and he said, "Sovereign Lord, now let your servant die in peace, as you have promised. I have seen your salvation, which you have prepared for all people. He is a light to reveal God to the nations, and he is the glory of your people Israel." And just after that, Anna, an old widow and prophet, went from person to person telling them, "The baby Jesus, and he is going to be our salvation." Well, anyway, Mary and Joseph continued to perform the things required by the law, and apparently must have went back and forth between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, where they were staying. Now, back to the wise men. When the wise men got to Judah, they went before King Herod in Jerusalem. "Your Majesty, we have come to ask, where is the one born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star and have come to worship him." Instead of being happy that such a wonderful thing was happening in his lifetime, the wicked King Herod was really bothered to think that there may be another king besides himself. He didn't tell the wise men what his thoughts were, though, of course. King Herod. "Bring me leaders from the Jewish temple." When they came before him, he asked, "Where is it that the Messiah was to be born?" They found the passage in the Bible and told the king, "He is to be born in Bethlehem." Then they read the passage, "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you shall come a ruler who shall shepherd my people Israel." So the king turned to the Magi and asked them, "When did you first see the star appear?" We don't know their answer, but it pretty much had to be less than 2 years and as little as maybe a few weeks. King continuing, "Now, you wise men, go and find the child and report back to me so that I too may go and worship him." Fat chance, right? On leaving the king's presence, they discovered the star had been in the western sky, is now moving south towards Bethlehem. Now, here's the real mystery of the star. It came and stood over the house where Jesus was. Well, anyone who's looked in the night sky pretty much knows that those tiny points of lights in the sky are not capable to stand over a particular house so that you know which one to go to. Especially a star would kind of destroy our whole solar system. Anyway, so I don't think that particular star was a planet, a comet, or a meteor, although many such ideas have been tossed about. This had to be something sent from God himself to direct the wise men. Some say it was an especially bright angel. It could be. Whatever it was, when they saw it, they got excited. If it had been the custom of the time, they would have been jumping up and down, giving each other high fives. Yes, yes, yes. Anyway, when they came into the house, they saw Jesus with Mary, his mom. They dropped to the floor and worshipped him. And that was when the first Christmas gifts were given. They didn't give baby Jesus a rattle, diapers, baby shoes, or even a Nintendo Switch. Of course, they didn't have that kind of thing. They gave him gifts fit for a king: the gold, frankincense, the myrrh. That night, as the wise men slept, they all had a common dream from God that warned them not to go back to the evil King Herod. So they took another route back to their home in the east. Then Joseph had a dream from God telling them to take Jesus and his mom and go to Egypt until the bad king is dead. So just like Israel was sent to Egypt and taken out later to the promised land, so was Jesus. This is where the gold came in handy, since it cost money to rent a place and live, feed a family. Now here's the saddest part of what happened. The evil King Herod got really mad that he hadn't been told where Jesus was living. So he figured he'd just get rid of all the baby boys in and around Bethlehem. Of course, Jesus wasn't there, so it really didn't do him any good, and it's really a sad time indeed. So again, Joseph, while in Egypt, received another dream after they'd been there a while. An angel appeared to him and let him know that those who sought him to kill Jesus are dead. King Herod worried about there being another king, and here he is, he's dead now. The one who took the king's place is not much better. It was his son. The leaf didn't fall far from the tree. But Joseph is warned and carefully takes Mary and the child, Jesus, back to their hometown, place on the border of Judah, to a town called Nazareth. This town and area was ruled by another ruler. Now at this point, I'm going to explain a map.
What you see here to the left are the journeys of Mary and Joseph. We know that in the original first Christmas story, they were called away from their hometown in Nazareth to go to Bethlehem, where their family was from, to be taxed. So they traveled from Nazareth to Bethlehem. That's about 80 miles, which is also about how far it was when you went to the Boston Museum. You drove in a car 65 miles an hour to get from Springfield, not from Springfield, from South Hadley to Boston. That was 80 miles. Can you imagine walking that? Well, that's what Mary and Joseph did. They walked. And then, and she walked pregnant. She may have been on a donkey. She may not. That's not mentioned. So that's where they went. And then from there, they were told to go down to Egypt to escape the mean king. So they went to Egypt, somewhere down here. When the angel came back and said, "Oh, you can leave now," they didn't go back the way they came. They went straight through all this back roads to get to Nazareth, avoiding Jerusalem because the king there was not a good king. But at least he wasn't the one that was out to kill them. So that's their travels. And they went back and forth to Jerusalem to Bethlehem. Here's their little trip. That's about 3 miles. No, 2 or 3 miles from Bethlehem to Jerusalem and back.
Who are these magi of the east, wise men? Caravan, what do they bring? They look for a suckling babe and then bring him gifts fit for a king. Bring him gifts fit for a king. They saw the star shining in the west and followed that star till they found God's very own Son, his very best, in little Bethlehem town, little Bethlehem town. They sung, holy, holy, holy is God we know, he who brings us his salvation. We worship him as we go, we worship him as we go. Who are these wise men, not even a Jew? Who do they think they are? Who gave them permission to do what they do just because they followed some star? Just because they followed some star. Unlike the religious, the proud, the pompous, they came to worship a child. Following the star they used as their compass, they showed they were humble and mild. They showed they were humble and mild. They sung, holy, holy, holy is God we know. He brings to us his salvation. We worship him as we go. We worship him as we go. So we sing, holy, holy, holy is God we know. He who brings us his salvation. We worship him as we go. We worship him as we go. Oh, we sing, holy, holy, holy is God we know. He who brings us his salvation. We worship him as we go. We worship him as we go.